Fred is here today from his role in the past as being a state board chair and also now as a leader in the field of competency education in New Hampshire. So I wanted to take the opportunity to welcome him to Kearsarge and give you the opportunity to speak with Fred this evening. So without further ado.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you, Mike. Nice to see you all. Thank you so much for coming out. I think that this document is an important document, so I'm glad you're here to find out more about it. I'm excited about what the promise that this document holds for us. I hope by the end of the evening that you feel that way as well. But we're here with Val Zanchuk. Val is part of the 306 team that was convened in order to create a draft to bring forward and to get input into. And so that's what we have done. We have created a draft. And as such, it is subject to change. And much of why we're here is to listen to thoughts that you have and suggestions that you might have on how to make it better. Val, I've told the story a few times. Val's going to get sick of me telling. Minimum standards for public school approval, ED 306, is the document that really is kind of the guiding document on how New Hampshire runs its public schools. And so it is an important document. And it's important and has always been important to me that we talk to as many people as possible about what's in the document, give them the understanding of the philosophy, the direction, what the document is, what the document isn't. At the first few sessions that we did, it became very clear that there's a lot of angst in the system right now, and that people are anxious about a number of things. Some people are mad at the commissioner, some people are mad at the department, mad at the legislature, mad at school funding. They're upset about a whole bunch of things that we can't do anything about. So we have this precious time where we can talk, and the goal is, let's talk about the document so that we can improve this document, because that we can do something about. While Val and I have no votes, we are not the ones who vote on making this thing a reality. We do have the ear of the people who do have votes. So it's our goal that we take the information that we gather at these sessions, and then we meet with our team, and we go back to the department and state board and say, here are the things that we've heard, and here are the things that we recommend. And so far, I'd say the themes are similar, wouldn't you say, Val? Themes are similar in lots of places. So, but that's the hope, that we make this document even better than it already is. So, Christine, so this is the team that put this document together. And to me, this is a public school all-star team. Nick Green was a chemistry teacher at Bow High School and is now at the Department of Education. Carolyn Eastman was the assistant superintendent of schools at Oyster River. She now is a competency-based learning expert and works for the New Hampshire Learning Initiative. Jeff Beard is the head of CTE at the Department of Education. Barrett Christina is the head of the School Boards Association. David Ryan is the superintendent of schools in Exeter. Steve Kosakowski is the executive director of the Virtual Learning Academy Charter School. Brian Stack is the former principal of the Sanborn Regional High School and now is also a member of the New Hampshire Learning Initiative and a competency-based expert author. Val, you met Val. Val is the chair of the board of the New Hampshire Learning Initiative. Val was the chair of the board of the New Hampshire Business and Industry Association, and he's also the president of a manufacturing firm out of the Keene area. the participants from the NCCBL board, National Center for Competency-Based Learning. Dr. Mary Ford. Mary was the head of special education for the state. She was also the dean of education at Southern New Hampshire University. Jackie Gillette was the superintendent of schools of the Claremont School District when Claremont was, during the Claremont lawsuit days. Nathan Harris is a doctoral candidate at the University of New Hampshire, comes from the business world, but he is getting his doctorate in educational leadership. Excuse me, Dr. Robert McLaughlin. Bob is, he was the Dean of Education at New Hampshire College, also a member of the Department of Education in the Bureau of Credentialing, and he is chair of the NCCBL board. So I think it's a great team. We have had comments from a number of places. Do you have a teacher on it? I've responded saying, we probably have 50 to 100 years of teaching, public school teaching experience on this group. But we do not have a current teacher. And we had asked up front, you know, when we first putting the team together, we had called the NEA and asked Irv Richardson if he wanted to serve, and Irv said that he didn't have time. We ended up not putting a teacher on. Blame me. We went out looking for a teacher, so we have. I'm pretty sure that we've got the person that we're going to add to the team. He was recommended by Rob Millay, who is the superintendent of schools in Keene. He is the head of the, and he's the president of the NEA in Keene. And I think that I'm pretty sure he's going to say yes. We've had a good conversation. I'm quite sure he's going to say yes. So, and it's a good time because he will be there for the gathering of all of this information that we are getting, and be part of the conversation with the rest of the team on recommendations that we ultimately make to the State Board of Education. Next. So the charge of the 306 team was to advance competency-based learning, a path that the State Board started going down in 2005. Utilizing the vision of the State Board of Education that was created a dozen or so years ago. And this is a very important statement because you'll see elements of this in the elements of the changes that are being recommended. To harness community resources and technology to provide a world-class, personalized, student-centered education in a flexible, innovative learning environment that promotes active engagement and maximizes the potential in every individual. You know, it might sound like, you know, just a bunch of words. It's not a bunch of words to the team. It's not a bunch of words to the State Board of Education. Every word in that statement is important. Next. The guiding documents that we've used in this, so we use the definition of competency-based learning from the Aurora Institute, and we use New Hampshire's vision of redesign. I've got my copy over here. It's falling apart. Val's got his. He's got a much better copy than mine. Mine is coming apart more and more by the day. But this document was created in 2007, and it was intended to be the spirit and the intent of the changes in the 2005 regulations, which were, those were monumental. Those were a big deal change. In 2005, the State Board made New Hampshire the first state in the United States to make the statement that it was moving away from the traditional time-based system and moving to a competency-based model. And since then, virtually every state in the United States is now moving down the same path. We started it. We were the first ones. And now, as I said, just about every state in the country is moving in the competency direction. That is a shift. That's a big shift. And easiest way for me to explain what that difference is envision this as the old system. And in that system, time and place are the constants. Time, 180 days a year. Move on by age. Kids get a year older, they move to the next level. Constants. The variable is learning. Some kids get A's, B's, C's, D's. As long as you pass with at least a D, you move to the next grade. That's the old system. The new system, the competency-based model, you switch it. Time and place become the variable. Learning, State Board made this declaration in 2005. We really didn't care where the learning came from. We wanted to make sure the kids learned. And, so the State Board blessed learning anytime, any place, anyhow, any pace. And that becomes the variable. And now the constant is the learning. These are the competencies. These are what you need to know and be able to do. And when you can demonstrate that you are proficient, mastery, proficiency, then that's when you move. And so, in the old system that all of us are aware of, someone could get an A in addition, subtraction, and multiplication, D or an F in division. They still pass the course. Why should we let them pass the course if we believe that division is important and is going to be important to them? I tell kids, if you're going to learn to fly a plane and you get an A in taking off, you get an A keeping the plane in the air, but you get a D or an F in landing, they don't let you pass the course. So in competency-based learning, these are the competencies when you develop proficiency in all of the required competencies, then you move to the next level. And so that does not happen at the same time for every kid. The noteworthy elements of the new of what is in this system. Focus on moving to a competency-based model. This is a non-change. Non-change. This is a doubling down on anytime, any place, hands-on, personalized, student-centered education. Focus on learning, not time spent in the classroom. State Board, obviously little kids, there's a custodial nature to it. But as kids get older, it's once again a focus on, it's on learning. Not that the focus on learning is not on little kids too, because we look at that as the same as the last thing that says move on when ready. So you don't move when you get older, you move when you are ready. And I would love if every person in this room would would look on YouTube for, look up WMUR Parker Varney School. It's in Manchester. It's an inner city school. A high percentage of the kids on free and reduced lunch. And see a move on when ready system in action in an elementary school. And it's beautiful. And you watch that video and you will see happy kids, happy parents, happy teachers, and the principal of the Parker Varney School that's in the video. The superintendent was so impressed what she had done. They moved her up to assistant superintendent, and she is going to be the incoming superintendent of Lebanon. School year defined as 165 days or more. This is a non-change, because they could do this now. We put this in just because we were hoping to get, when we did it in 2005, we multiplied the number of hours required in a day times the number of days in a year, 180 times 5.5, came up with 990 hours. Every educator in the room knows those 990 hours, 945 for elementary. Excuse me. It was our expectation that the education community would take this and see that, wow, they have plenty of authority to do whatever they want around the schedule. They have to, they have to offer hours of instruction, but, but they could make, move that around any way they want. And there was, we didn't see enough of a change, and we thought maybe a change in the wording will inspire more to get creative about how they craft their school calendar. Definition of instructional time as the time required for schools to offer instruction. Again, another non-change. This is a change only to clarify the intent of the rule. It was the intent when we put those 990 hours is not that kids are going to now sit in classes for 990 hours a year instead of 180 days a year. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. What we're trying to accomplish is the school is required to offer learning. And that learning time is a non-change from when it was, where it was back in the, in the 80s probably. But the difference is that it is not saying that kids are required to be in seats for all that time, because some kids are going to learn different ways. The word learning replaces instruction. That doesn't mean that we don't care about instruction. Instruction is one way for kids to learn, and there are other ways for kids to learn. So it could be online learning. It could be extended learning opportunities, which I'm sure that most of you are familiar with. But once again, the focus is on learning. Okay, then proficiency replaces mastery. And we've defined proficiency as a minimum level of mastery. This was the team, this was not my idea, I don't even know who came up with the idea, but somebody on our team said, I think the educators will like the word proficiency better than mastery. So we kind of said, okay, we'll put it in. But we've defined it as a minimum level of mastery. This is, if I were to look, and school districts all over the state have their own way of defining how they are going to grade things. But if I were going to look at a common competency scale as like a 1 through 4 scale, and this would in essence be saying that proficiency would probably be a 3 and mastery a 4. And so when students got to 3 or 4, then that would be determined to be sufficient to have demonstrated mastery of the competency, and that's how students would receive credit for it. Personalized learning plans for every student. We had wanted this in, and we still want it in. But the School Administrators Association said to us, Fred, we understand the sentiment, but this is a more challenging issue than you think it is, and we'd like to enter into conversations on how we go about doing personalized learning plans, but we don't think that it should be in the document. So the hope is that after the smoke clears and the conversation around these rules is done, that the school administrators and whoever else wants to get around a table and say, how do we do personalized learning plans? It's our belief that personalized learning plans are a big deal, and we would like this to move forward. It's not in the document, so there's, if anybody was coming to talk about personalized learning plans, it's not in the document. The strengthening of extended learning opportunities. This is an important part of the document. This is extended learning. I'm pretty sure that everybody, is there anybody who doesn't know what an extended learning opportunity is? Anybody that doesn't know what it, thank you, okay. So extended learning opportunities. In 2005, when the state board said, let's move down this competency-based path, and we really don't care where the learning comes from, that kids can learn anywhere they want, as long as in the end they can prove to us that they've learned, then we're good with it. extended learning opportunities are learning opportunities beyond the traditional school walls generally. Sometimes they happen inside of a school, but more often than not, they might happen in a community. So there might be a kid might learn automotives at a car dealership. A kid might learn space science at the planetarium. A kid might go to France for the summer and learn to speak French and come back and demonstrate that they have learned the language. And so we're saying any way that a student can be able to prove that he or she has mastered those competencies, we want that learning counted. Does that explain it to you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In 2016, 2017, the Department of Education conducted a study. It hired a group out of Philadelphia called Research for Action. You can look this up as well. Research for Action out of Philadelphia, Extended Learning Opportunities, New Hampshire, and I'm sure you'll find it. So there is an organization in New Hampshire now, started because of those 2005 regulations, called the Extended Learning Opportunity Network. And there are certified educators from pretty much the entire state that are involved in these matchmaking efforts, in essence, matching kids' interests to community learning opportunities. And so they did a study on ELOs in 2016, and here's some of the findings. As I said, you can look this up online. Students with special learning needs were significantly more likely to participate in ELOs. Students who participate in ELOs reflect the diversity of the school's entire population and are more likely to accumulate credits and be on track to graduate. Economically disadvantaged participants were more likely than their peers to be on track to graduate. Previously low-performing students accumulated more credit than their peers who did not take ELOs. Economically disadvantaged students showed increases in their SATs. Economically disadvantaged and academically low-performing students scored higher on their SATs than their non-ELO participating peers and were more likely to enroll in college. These are amazing results. And if I showed you the results for the rest of the student population, it's the same kind of stuff. The results are spectacular. And I remember the lead researcher saying to the group, I've been doing this for a long time, and we never, that's the word she used, never get results like this. And to the Extended Learning Opportunity Network, it was like, well, what did you expect was going to happen when you gave kids the opportunity to own their learning? They're going to do it their way as opposed to your way, and they're going to perform at great levels. And so to me, and to those of us who are ELO fans, we need to expand this and make sure that it's available to all kids. Yes?
Did they compare the same students' SAT scores that improved, or just compared to the non-ELO students?
They compared it to the general population, compared to within peer groups. Yeah, as I said, you can go to the study and it'll give you, I just gave you the executive summary, but it'll give you the detail in there.
Yeah, because I wonder if it makes an impression that they're the kind of students that are obviously willing to go above and beyond to reach out and find these extended learning opportunities. So they have a high interest in that. So versus a completely disengaged student, which would be partially involved in that other cohort. So I can look further into the study, but I guess I'm just wondering if there's some sort of correlation between versus a causation. Obviously, I'm a fan of ELOs, but I just wonder about that part of the study.
I would encourage you to go read the rest of it then, because I think that I think the results do speak for themselves. But if you want to look at the details, then I would highly recommend that. And and all we want is for the same kind of opportunities to be available to every kid. That's basically all we're looking for. And, you know, and right now there are, you know, in the past, there have been some school districts in the state
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure, as soon as I finish, excuse me, can I just finish making my one statement? I'm sorry, and then I'll gladly talk to you. There were some school districts in the state that were denying kids. They were saying that you know, you have to be a junior or a senior to do an ELO, or you can only do it in elective courses. And to our team, it's like, learning is learning, you know. We don't want to be saying no to kids. And as long as these things are done with quality, then we think they should be available to every kid. Yes?
So my question is, how do you determine what a site is for ELO?
Yeah.
And how do those people that are generating that
Yeah.
information get evaluated in regards to what they're giving to this student or any other
Sure.
student in that? And also, where is the safety in all of this, of children being out there? And then one other question that just precedes all of this is, my understanding is our state Department of Education is not a fond of this program, so.
It's not fond of ELOs?
Of a competency-based program.
Our state?
Yes.
No, I don't think that's true. I think they are big fans of it.
They are?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and but let me get to a couple of the other things that you asked. So there, Val, by the way, and I'll have him speak to it in a minute. Val is one of those sites. Val offers ELOs to students at his manufacturing facility. And there is a rigorous process that they need to go to pass background checks, and the ELO coordinator needs to make sure that they are satisfied that you know, for example, if they're going to work at an automotive dealership, then it can't be about buying coffee for the mechanics and sweeping the floors. It's got to be a program that is based on learning. So the ELO coordinators, fortunately we had the former head of the ELO coordinators at the Winnicott session, and there were questions like yours, and she was able to articulate it to everybody. But I would, it's a very active group. The Elon group is a very active group, and I would welcome you looking into it. So, was there another question that I saw someplace? Yes.
What about the Learn Everywhere program? How is
So-
that overseen?
So
How does that relate to the ELO program you're describing?
So Janet, this is when we put together the ELO process in 2005. There was, Learn Everywhere was not part of that. I can't speak for the commissioner. He was the one that led the Learn Everywhere process. And it's now law, it's part of New Hampshire law now. And what I gather was that he had frustration that that school districts were not allowing ELOs to happen, that were saying, I just gave you examples. Either you can't do it because they have to be a junior or senior, or you can only do elective courses, that there were school districts in the state that were doing that, and that was out of frustration. And you know, so to me, I'd rather go back to just all ELOs. Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, that's what I'd prefer. Let's do it all ELOs. Let's let certified educators be the ones that are overseeing it. That would be my personal choice. You know, I don't know if assuming that these rules pass, whether that becomes an option to add that to it, but it's something that I would love to see. Somebody else?
I guess it's more of a question. Just, I was looking at my notes from the law change. Didn't they change it to not have Under ELOs, certified school personnel to oversee an individual student's program. So why would we not have certified teachers determining whether this program is allowing them to actually learn anything?
As far as we're concerned, I think our team would tell you that we want certified educators overseeing
Isn't
ELOs.
that not what the law says?
That's what the law says now, yes it
But it's
is.
being removed.
And let's hope it's not, so.
But it's your document.
We were not responsible for all of the changes in the document.
So how do we change that?
There's some of the, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to get input. Val, you have that down? They said it again? Okay, again, this is a common theme, and you know, our job is just to bring the information back. I would, you have another person asking a question? Okay, one more question, and then I'm gonna finish this, and then we'll have as many questions as you want. Go ahead.
I struggle with the word rigorous when you said that ELO sites are accredited, reviewed. That's not the case. I am a fan of ELOs, to be completely honest, but when I have students go for a week, 1 week, for an ELO, and get 1 credit in English and 1 credit in art for a week, that's not learning, Fred.
Mhm.
It's not.
Yeah,
But my students, Fred,
Yep.
you said to other people to let
Sure,
them
go ahead.
finish, right?
Yeah, say that
Just
again?
checking. So,
I said what?
to let people finish.
Sure, go ahead.
So, when I have students come back saying that they've only written a few speeches, and they don't know how they got an art credit, that's not rigorous, that's not authentic, and it's not okay. It's not.
Okay. That is not going to be governed by this document. Those are local decisions.
The word local is removed everywhere
The
in
word-
this document, Fred. Everywhere. Anywhere where it says local school board is struck out. And that's your document. That's not the changes.
So let's clarify that just for a second, just so that we're all on the same page. That is an accurate statement, except that there's a definition of school board, and the definition of school board that's been added says wherever it says school board, it's the local school board. Now, folks have said, to me, you're talking 6 of one, a half a dozen of the other, but but clearly it's been stated a lot of times, and if that's the way folks want it, then we're likely to recommend putting it back. Val, you would agree with that?
Yeah, it was taken out just to make it part of a definition. So on the second page of the 306 draft, you know, school board means the local school board of a district under RSA 189. So there was no intent not to make it mean the local school board. We just define local school board up front, saying that anytime you see the word or the phrase school board, it means local school board, just as anytime you see the phrase state board, it means the State Board of Education. So yes, it was taken out, but it was put in as a definition up front to oversee the entire documents.
So,
And so to not reiterate it throughout the document itself
Yeah,
for the common,
So to not reiterate through the document itself, that's great, that's a definition. Out front, perfect. But to not reiterate throughout the document itself does not help the lay people,
yeah.
first.
Okay.
Second, thank you again for letting me finish.
Yep.
Second, you are usurping your constituencies when you're removing that word local. It's a usurpation. People have elected a local school board to define local standards. So when I see the word graduation removed from competencies, I worry because that is taking local control away. When Drew Klein says local control is a myth, that concerns me.
okay? Thank you. So let's get through the last couple. A high school credit is defined as a bundling of related competencies. An overly simplified version would be similar to what I talked about earlier, where if addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are the required competencies, then getting being competent in 3 of them, and not being competent in the other, is not a high enough standard. And therefore, we are saying that this is how we want a credit defined. I know when I was a teacher, that when I would give grades, and like many of my fellow teachers, that oftentimes it was X amount given for class participation, and X amount for quizzes and tests, and X amount for the X% for the final exam. And what in a competency-based model, the formative stuff is nice, but it's not what a credit should be based on. A credit should be based on, in the end, have you demonstrated proficiency, mastery of the required competencies. So this, to me, is, you're talking about rigorous, this is raising the standards. Graduation competencies, another thing you just talked about. Graduation competencies are in there stronger than ever before. And for the first time, our team decided that it was not enough to just say graduation competencies. That you had, and this was reinforced by the superintendents. The superintendents wanted inside the document a set of graduation competencies, those things that kids should know and be able to do to be able to say, yes, that is worthy of graduating from a New Hampshire high school. So, when we had a meeting at Laconia Middle School, where we had 40 to 50 competency experts gathered to look at the document, make suggestions to us. And I remember in starting off the meeting, talking to them about this specific thing and saying that I really want you to look at it because and feel free to change anything that you want. Look at it, see if you got if we didn't frame it properly, then please tell us how we should do it. The caution is that you can't set the bar so high that too many kids aren't going to be able to get there and therefore not graduate. And you can't set the bar so low that it becomes a joke. That a New Hampshire diploma has to mean something. So what is that minimum level that you are willing to say every student that graduates from a New Hampshire high school will have demonstrated proficiency in all of these areas? So that is in there, and we'll see how that does when we get. So far, we're okay with the department on that. We'll see how it does when as we continue to go through the process. So now let's open it up for anybody. Yes.
How did you get that teacher input for that last piece? Because you mentioned, maybe I misheard it, but I thought you mentioned that for the deciding on what the minimum standard should be for graduation.
We convened a group of competency experts, the majority of which were teachers, at Laconia Middle School for 2 days, and they went through the document and made tons of suggestions to the 306 team, and I would say that the majority of the suggestions they made were approved by our team. Would you agree with that, Val? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Hi, my name is Steve Shepard, and I was actually there.
Oh, great.
And one of the administrators. And what I was going to ask, because I've had a chance to look over the latest draft, and we spent a lot of time looking at curriculum in particular, and we made lots of suggestions. A lot of them were keep it the way it was.
Yeah.
And we with the original. So what I'm noticing in everything that I'm looking through, I don't see any of the suggestions that we put forward in this current draft. And that was a little disappointing, I have to admit, because you had around 45 to 50 people there, and we were really concerned with what was being stripped out. And the same, especially in the curriculum piece, the same phrase about having a competency-based system was throughout every content standard. and the only thing that was replaced would be the topic, like math, science. So it stripped away a lot of the rigor, and people were very nervous about that, and very frustrated with that, honestly. So I've looked over it. I don't see any of the comments and suggestions that we put in my multiple groups in the curriculum piece.
I would say that most of them were put, Val, do you recall different than I do? What would you say?
It's a while back, Fred, I don't remember specifically on each one, but we did review it, but then it also went back to the department.
My recollection is that the majority of it got put back. I guarantee that Val has written that down, and we will take that statement and we'll go look at it again. And we are still in the process of talking to the individual groups about what they would like in the document.
Well, people did make copies of the work that they did and kept it
Yep.
because they were worried. And
Okay.
we're not seeing any of that
Okay.
language carried
Then-
over. So
then-
that is concerning that we spent a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
Over 2 days, and it felt like we weren't listened to.
Okay,
So I just want to be transparent.
Thank you. I hear you.
I was also there, so
Great.
I'm agreeing with you.
Thank you.
And also, I don't think there was adequate representation for the standards. There are 45 teachers, but the committee I was on did not have a high school teacher, and I was representing math. So I don't feel
Okay.
like, there was representation from teachers, yes, but I don't feel like it was the full gamut of people
Yeah.
stakeholders who could have been there.
Okay.
It was a small representation, and I don't feel that that was an adequate
Okay,
representation.
and I will tell you that as recently as today, I have been in conversation with Bill Carosa from ASCD, and who conducted those sessions on both of those days, and we are talking about getting in touch with all of those groups. Yes, Christine.
Hey Fred, Christine Downing, Sutton Central School Principal and Curriculum Director for Kearsarge. So I was also at that event. Myself, Kristen Lazat, and Steve Shepard were the representatives from Kearsarge at that 2-day event. And I left, I've shared this with you, you know it, but I just want the public to know this. I left that event with one clear message from the teachers in that room. We're missing the large voice of the teacher. So under that premise, and I too, like Kristen said, the representation in the room was very scarce, very scarce. In fact, Bill Carosa asked me when I got there and said, I need you to work with what we call singletons, meaning there was one art teacher to look over the art standards, and she was at a middle school level, very concerned. There was one PE teacher, one health teacher. So I worked with the singletons in the room, and their expressive concern to me was the lack of teacher voice in this process. And you and I have had multiple conversations about that. That being said, last week, very quickly, I ran for the Kearsarge district 2 sessions for teachers to attend, an hour and a half each at the end of school. The session ran like this. I gave them most of your similar slides. And gave them the background, what was the purpose of the ED 306. I had then taken the full 80-something page document and split it up into sections. They had copies of the sections on that back table in this room, and then I said, you have the remaining time, which for most was over an hour. Take a section that you're passionate with, and then I gave them a Google feedback form. So I do want the public to know, and you and Val are both in possession of the full report, as well as the sample feedback form that people completed, as well as the individual responses. We had a turnout of 31 registrations, 19 have completed the survey to date. I intend to continue it because the feedback session is still open. But I think you need to take time reviewing this report. I'm not going to do it all tonight, but you can see this is very small. I don't expect the audience to see it. But on the left, those are all the major 33 topics that exist in the minimum school approval standards and the number of people that reviewed them throughout our session. I also asked a generic question about how they felt regarding the proposed standards. And many felt at this point that the rules are in need of significant changes. That being said, there was a series of questions I asked them. I asked them what are the current strengths what are the current concerns they have, and what are their current questions. I would encourage you guys to really read them. Some of the themes, I'm just gonna quickly point them out, from the staff at Kearsarge are: one, deep concerns around the ELOs and significant language that has been stripped regarding the approval process and the requirement of certified educations. We had several school psychologists actually review those sections, and there are very significant concerns related to those specific standards. So I would encourage you to look at the school psychological service section as well. There was also concern about the inconsistency in terms of competencies. I understand that the state is putting more power behind consistency with competencies. That was applauded, because that's where you and I have talked, we have failed as a state when this initiative started earlier. But there was confusion about were these state level competencies, was there still room for local and district competencies, and so there was some confusion around that. There was huge theme in the categories from the Kearsarge educators around equity. And what I mean by this is language that had specifically been put into the minimum school standards to make us value the diversity we have, even in the small rural state we have been stripped to be so vague that they feel like we're going backwards in meeting that personalization you're talking about. So I really, really do encourage you to focus on those sections. Just a few other, because I don't want to take up the airtime. I know a lot of other people have that. But there was also strong feelings in science about a lot of removal in science. And we understand that there are only, first of all, I think it's appalling that this state only requires, 2 credits still in science? That's ridiculous in the age we live. And so to strip away guidance on what programming at the science level for the high school should look like is setting us backwards. The general theme that the Kearsarge educators left this room feeling is this was actually moving us backwards. That if the goal was competency-based learning, which we believe in that in Kearsarge, our mission, our vision, our strategic plan is about that this was becoming almost to the other side of being so vague that it left too much up for what you and I worked hard when we were at the state to close those gaps based on zip codes, right? We want all students. We share this passion, Fred. We want all students to have these great learning experiences. There was a general sense in the feedback that came from this Kearsarge group that what the wording that's in here isn't doing that. It's not getting it done. And they're specific. People have done an awesome job citing specific standards, specific words. I really, really encourage you. And the last plug I'll say is what I did here in Kearsarge is not difficult to replicate. So I would say these listening sessions are great. It's great. You're coming, you're hearing the feedback. But the people on the ground that have to live, breathe, and eat this every day are the educators. And we know the #1 impact on student learning is the person we put in that classroom. And if we're going to empower power schools to really be that choice option, right? It's not choice option is because public schools aren't a choice anymore. If we're going to do that, we need to value the voice of the educator. So I'm just putting on public record.
Thank you, Christine. I'm not disagreeing with anything that Christine said, yes.
I hate following Christine.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I hate being the person speaking after Christine. I favor competency-based education.
Me too.
I favor ELOs.
Me too.
I'm concerned about implementation.
Yes.
And I think that's what people are talking
Absolutely.
about. I think I'm in the majority
I agree with
favoring those, but implementation scares me.
Can I just respond to that? We totally get that, and it concerns us too, because in my opinion, since 2005, when these things were first put in place, the Department of Education has yet to truly step up and make it happen in the way that it should. So yes, we have the same exact concern.
The Department of Education is one of the aspects that scares me about implementation. Specific question to be short and then a more generalized one. The 900 hours, you say there is no It's just a change of wording to
Yeah.
165 minimum
Yeah,
days
the hours didn't change.
of learning.
Yeah.
Does it say 900 hours?
Yes, 990 hours, yes, same amount of hours.
Which is
Okay.
defined by
What's that?
306 though. Did
What's
you-
that?
Did you keep the recommendations in 306 for a 6.0 learning day in terms of the day equivalencies? I mean, the 900 versus the 945s are all determined in 306.
Yes,
So those all stay the same.
the 990 and the 945 are the same.
It's challenging, just to say, in terms of the content that we have to express, but I hear you.
Yeah, Michael, I think to clarify what you're saying is that in the minimum school approval standards, the requirement that an instructional day cannot be any longer than 6 hours at the secondary level is still in play, because if you do the math of 990 divided by the 6 hours, that's where the 165 days comes from. And I think what the intent of the group was to say, we're gonna do the math for you, and the 990 hours divided by that will give you the 165, so you're still meeting it.
Yeah,
But 6 is the maximum. Minimum?
The 6 hours is maximum. You are not to exceed 6 instructional hours at the
Right.
secondary level. It's 5.75 for the
So
elementary.
you're allowed to have 5 hours.
Yes, correct.
yes, you could have,
Then you wouldn't have your 990.
no, you could have 4 hours and have 230. I mean, so it's not, the hours are remaining the
It
same.
also specifies in what defines instructional hours. For example, you can't count passing time as instructional hours. So when you build a calendar.
990
Yeah.
is in there.
Same.
Mhm.
More general question, because you've answered some things that people seem to be unhappy with by saying it's not your committee's
Yep.
authorization to deal with that. Can you tell us what your committee can and what others will be in control of?
Sure. We can make recommendations of which we will do. I'm not gonna swear in blood, but I'll bet we'll put local school boards back. I bet we'll put, we'll recommend putting the equity piece back. I bet, we'll make a lot of the recommendations that have come out of this conversation. Whether the state board and the department say yes to that or not, we can't promise that. So, but I can tell you that this team cares about public education, and our goal is to make it better than ever, and to strengthen competency-based learning, and strengthen the opportunities for kids to learn, and strengthen our ability to actually make these things happen by making sure that we have educators who understand what they need to do with the new changes. So the implementation part, exactly what you were talking about, is a big concern of ours as well.
Hi there again. My name is Nicole LaRock. I am one of the occupational therapists here at Kearsarge. One of my questions is, for transparency's sake, when the board is approving these recommendations, is that at all available to the public to know, like, what was actually recommended from our input, or is it at all possible that some of the recommendations are not going to be submitted?
So here's what, yes, it's possible that some of the recommendations would not be submitted. In other words, we're writing everything down. We'll bring it back to our team. And if we bring it back to the team and Val recommends sticking local school board in there, the team could say, it's already in there in the definitions, leave it the way it is. That could happen, okay? So there's no guarantee that any of these things ultimately make it to the next draft. There is, we will pull, by the time we meet the next time, there'll be a classroom teacher on our team too. And it's my guess that many of the things that you're talking about will make it into our set of recommendations, which we will then give to the State Board of Education. We're not sure what they do with it from there. Here's what I know. the rules, the rules allow for the board, they have to hold a hearing, okay? So they have to hold a public hearing. And, so at some point in the next few months, and I don't know when that'll occur, they will choose to go, they will choose whether or not to go into the rulemaking process. That is a process that opens up a 180-day window. And during that time, there can be more conversations just like this. There can be, more testimony, written testimony. There can be Zoom meetings. There can be still lots of information brought in. But when they bring it forward, when they decide to go into rulemaking, it's not even a guarantee that they will enter rulemaking with the document that we gave them. They can make changes to that. And then they'll say, this is the document we want to bring forward. So our guess is that a lot of the things that we've recommended will be in that document. That certainly is our hope. But they're the ones with the power. So there's still a long time to go. We're scheduling these things right now into September. So when will they go into rulemaking? I don't know. I don't even know if they'll go into rulemaking by September. But whenever they go into rulemaking, that will start the 180-day clock. So clearly, there's nobody rushing this thing.
Would you be willing or able to share the second draft of that document?
We're going to share whatever is a public document. When we gave our document to the State Board of Education, they accepted it. It became a public document at that point. That is a document that gets shared with everybody. That we're not going to share something that is not a reflection of the thinking of the team. So yes, you'll see more documents because there's going to be changes made to it. And when those documents become official, our team approved, given it to the state board, then it'll be a public document.
Okay, thank you. I have one more. In the first slide, you
First, say that again.
In one of the first slides, you made reference to instructional time, learning, or instructional time. But then you said that there's a definition of something along calling it learning time. I just find it interesting that in the document it's going to say instructional time.
Would you like me to say it again?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Christine, could you go back to it, please? Yep. So right there. Definition of instructional time as the time required for schools to offer instruction.
So to offer learning? Because
To
then
offer,
learning replaces
no.
instruction.
In much of the document, the word instruction was replaced with learning. That doesn't mean I should have been more clear about that. The word instruction is still in the document, and certainly in this place it says instructional time. So there is instruction that will be taking place, as it always has, but the focus is less on instruction than it is on learning.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I believe in a new process should have an evaluative procedure built in, or an evaluation measurement, and I haven't seen or heard from you yet in regards to evaluation. And how is that going to be handled? And is the public going to be able to discern this? And how is it going to be measured per student and per school district?
You can't have a process without an evaluation.
I don't believe that there is, I think the evaluation will come from, did we do our job making this as public as possible? I think that that's one measure of how we will in the end be evaluated.
So as a taxpayer, I expect that the monies that I'm paying you, your teachers, that there will be something for that. And I don't want to know that 10 years down the line that, oh gee, this competency thing isn't working. We need to have an evaluative procedures or some sort of tool that's discussed as part of the beginning and the process of this. Not at the end, 10 years down, when our students are not being world leaders, which I feel is going to be a big issue.
So,
That's part of the figure that gentleman mentioned.
yeah, I will say to you that the RFA study is one way that competency-based learning has been evaluated.
That, I don't care about that. I think I think you're talking a very small amount of data. We're not seeing numbers per se. This lady already had identified that, how do you know if the information is really given? When you're sending someone out for an ELO, which is a great idea, but it's only a part of a learning process. How do you know if that person is getting 2 credits for their English and their science, and they're going to college and they don't know much about biology, they don't understand a lot of the things that is already printed in part of another type of system. So I feel there's a lot of wishy-washiness going on. I feel like it's a big broad stroke and it's making everybody happy to talk about it. And I've had children and my kids are now young adults with kids. So, and I feel very invested as a taxpayer that I want the best for the Kearsarge school system.
Yeah, I don't blame
And
you.
actually the best in the state of New Hampshire as long as I'm living here. But I'm getting the soft, fuzzy, cuddly stuff. I'm not getting any hard data, which is what we need when we're going forward to evaluate. And that should be part of what's discerned at the beginning of this, not at the end, or how we're going to decide how this is working. So that's my 2 cents, and I would like that to be considered as part of the next process that goes forward with this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Nina Gardner, and I'm often intimidated in a room full of educators, except for the fact that I spent 19 years on the Winnisquam School Board and 15 years on the Budget Committee. So I care deeply about the education and the people that deliver it in these school districts. One of the things I felt when I read the standards, and although I'm not an educator, I'm a well-educated person, and I know what the standards have said over time. And what I feel the minimum standards have become in this document are very much less minimum. And that is very disturbing to me, and I'm a fan of extended learning opportunity. You should know that. That is not the basis of my concern here. The basis of the concern is a tonal change in the minimum standards that talk about less, and less is not more. Less is less. And that is a concern that I have. And I want to tie it to something else that I care about deeply, because it's the money end that I now live in. And that is, minimum standards are, for me, the basic line that makes an education adequate for each and every child that we are all educating, whether it's in Kearsarge or Winnisquam or Lebanon. And so I suspect that what's happening in these is that the minimum standards are becoming much more minimal. If that's what I see, and maybe others do as well, if the proposed changes are approved, what changes are going to be necessary to the state's financial responsibility to fund an adequate education with uniform state taxes? Will this increase or decrease the state's responsibility to provide adequate funding? I live in a district where I have a community that cannot pay its bills. I have 2 other communities that can. Adequate state funding is vital in places like that. So I'm wondering what your comment is, Fred, on this.
Sure.
You've been involved for a long time.
Thank you. Some of you, thank you very much for your great service. So here's how I would, this is how I would frame that. I'm convinced we're raising the bar. And I would say that we're raising the bar. I'll give you a couple of examples. One, and both of them I've already given you tonight. One of them, we're actually defining what graduation competencies are. It's never been in the document before. That is a raising of the bar. I guarantee you that this state has passed thousands of kids, have given them their diploma without having them proving that they have met those minimum graduation competencies. So there's one way. Then I mentioned about the notion of proficiency or mastery. There were no more. We're sending the message that, we don't want, giving 20% of a kid's grade based on class participation and homework and X amount for the final. We want you to prove that you have learned. And we have said that on that, we talked about a fairly common assessment rubric in the state. It is a four level system, and we've said that proficiency ought not to be anything less than a 3. That you've got to demonstrate that you are proficient in not, some of the competencies. If there are required competency, you need to demonstrate proficiency in all of them. To me, those are all good, clear examples of raising the bar.
Then I would expect that this proposal will then raise the requirements on the state to fund more education.
You will get no argument from us there. So Val serves on the Education Funding Commission.
I know it is.
Okay, I have actually argued education funding before the New Hampshire Supreme Court. So I get it, and it's another thing that we can't do anything about. We can argue and we can say, we think you ought to, that's what I'm hoping is that we sit down with, with the school administrators, and we come to an agreement around personalized learning plans, and then, and if it has a price tag on it, which it probably will, then we go to the we go to the legislature and say, look at the benefits of this, that this could be amazing. We really need to fund it. So, so we'll fight those battles with you, but we don't have authorization really to do anything.
And
Yes.
thank you for what you are doing for it.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Wright, I'm a local science teacher, and I'm loving what you are saying about standards, but how does gutting every bit of standard under the science section, which used to be quite extensive, down to 3 words, biology, chemistry, and physics, how is that raising standards?
Can I ask you, Mary, I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't, that I'm in conversation with Bill Carosa from ASCD about.
But what was the rationale for pulling that out?
I can't tell you, that was not something that our team did. I would love it if you would go back to your the science teachers, there's some association, and say, we really need to enter into conversations with the 306 team. Excuse me, about what the standards should be. I know that we're doing this right now. The technology folks have stepped up. We are going to be working with the technology folks on getting their best thoughts into the document.
Folks, I'm going to try to make a round. I promise I'm coming around. I'm trying to get to people who have not had a chance to speak, so if you want to speak, please raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to give some feedback. Along with what Mary was saying about the curriculum areas, there's a key change to a lot of the language in all of the curriculum programs, where it used to say that they were required to provide, and then it would list the instruction, but now in the revisions it says that they may include. And to me that's very different to say this is required, I know these students are going to get these things, versus they may get some of these things.
Thank you. That's exactly the kind of thing that we're looking for. Thank you very much.
And that's exactly the point I was going to make too, because that feels very much like, if it doesn't happen, whatever. And it also feels very much like, we won't have to fund very much if it isn't required. Maybe minimum standards means adequacy is impossible to define. That's very troubling for me.
Hi. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the culture and the facilities section.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that are crossed out in the facilities section, especially that alarm me, ventilation. You know, there's a lot of things crossed out that I'm just curious why those things are all crossed out. Lighting, exhaust and ventilation, provide accessibility for students with disabilities. There's a lot of things crossed out.
Thank you. You know, I will say that was all stuff that had nothing to do with our team, but we will make note of it, and we will go back and talk to them about the concern. Thank you. Once again, exactly what we're looking for feedback. Thank you. Yes. Oh.
To get specific about what the woman from Winnisquam talked about, I'm on page 31, item 5 in parentheses. The old standard says educators, including art, music, health, and physical education teachers in accordance with class size, etc. The new standard says educators in accordance with class size requirements. It says nothing about art, music, health, and physical education, and that is an easy way to get the state out of considering that for an adequate education. And I don't want somebody who is completely dense in those areas as a future citizen of this state.
Thank you.
Besides Steve Shepard, Kristen Lazat, Christine Downing, the 45 teachers in Laconia, and the person being added to your team soon, how many certified administrators or certified teachers have reviewed these standards and given formal feedback?
Many.
How many?
I will tell you that we have had multiple meetings with the School Administrators Association, multiple, in person and Zooms. We've had multiple meetings with the NEA, we met with the AFT, the School Boards Association, the School Principals Association. We've met with the special ed folks. We've met with school psychologists. So, and not only will I say many more than have ever happened in the history of this state on this particular document.
I'm going to call back then from our woman from Winnisquam. How come our standards now have become so minimal? If this many people are giving feedback.
Feedback's after the fact.
Not
The
true.
feedback isn't actually noted.
Not true. Not after the fact.
And how can you know it's many more if you don't have a number at all?
No, I know because I've been involved with this thing for 30 years.
But if
So,
you don't have a number of how many people have given you formal feedback, then how do you know it's more?
okay, what I've just explained, so I ran the process in 2005. I was chairman of the State Board of Education at the time. We had 5 of these sessions around the state. We had 1 in every region of the state. And at the time, the head of the School Boards Association said that it was the most inclusive process the state has ever seen in with the minimum standards. So that was 2005. This is so far beyond that and will continue to be way beyond that.
I mean, I'm grateful that you're listening to everything,
Mhm.
but it kind of seems like there's some other entity that slashed everything you guys wanted in this document and continues to do so. So no offense, I don't have a lot of faith in any of this.
So since I have the magic microphone, I feel like it's my turn to ask a question, which I was going to ask exactly that. So Fred, you're not exactly instilling a lot of confidence in us that what you guys say matters. You convened a group of 45 people in Laconia, told us that a lot of what they said was included, and people who were there said, actually, no, that's not the case. So my question to you is, who is actually making these decisions, and could you give me a Civics 101 lesson on who should we actually be talking to? Is this Edelblitz's crew, his cronies, or is it our state representatives? So you have far more knowledge about the inner workings of this. Could you tell us a little about who's actually making these decisions?
Yes, I mean, the end, it is the State Board of Education that makes the decision, in the end.
Appointed by, elected, appointed?
Appointed by the governor.
Appointed by the governor.
Yeah, whatever governor is in office appoints, when openings come up, they appoint someone to the State Board of Education. So, so I will tell you, we have no power. We might have some influence, and that's what we're hoping for.
Fred, reading from the last draft in regards to your comment on defined graduation standards. Students will be able to attain acknowledgement of achievement through proficiency. Mastery was struck, district or graduation competencies.
Which we said earlier, we told you that up front, if you like mastery, put it back in.
No, I
We haven't heard
like district or graduation competencies, which you said were not struck.
Say it again?
I like district or graduation competencies, which you said were not struck,
Graduation competency.
which are struck. And thank you, Fred. And my follow-up to that is, as you said, we'd like to provide a rubric that says a 3 equals this. That's not your role. That would be great to provide advisory, but again, I go back to that as local control, and you are usurping local voters.
Yeah, so, you're right, that we haven't put that in the document, and probably couldn't put that in the document. So which with the graduation competencies are in the document stronger than they've ever been, not even close. And the district competencies, it's the districts that are gonna be able to craft their own competencies at the local level. That is going to be more clear than ever. Yes?
So Fred, you know I respect you, but at this point, I'm gonna have to disagree with you about the competency language being stronger. Up on the screen, I have what is being proposed under 306.25 sections G and H. Here's what it used to read. The local school board shall require that graduation be based on mastery of required graduation competencies at a, I like the addition, proficient level as demonstrated through the accumulation of credits as outlined, right, by a certified educator. You are potentially saying we are going to remove mastery, we are going to remove requirement, and we're going to remove the supervision of it by an educator, a certified educator.
Can I ask you, Christine?
Yeah.
Would you prefer mastery or proficiency?
Mastery.
I like how it was read, and let me just continue. Each high school shall ensure that, I like that, that's determined, but ensure. I'd like to see required, completion of a classroom course, career technical education course, independent, I love all that, right? Demonstration, again, of district graduation competencies. Demonstration of whose competencies, okay? Now here's the part that scares me, Fred, and it scares me as a person who has been on this CBE journey with you since 2005. Section 8 was a well-defined section. Here's what I mean. Credit shall be based on the demonstration of district and or graduation competencies and not on time spent achieving those competencies. Love it, keep district and graduation, but the part that's getting removed, you are wiping it down to next to nothing. The credit shall equate to the level of rigor and achievement necessary to master competencies that have been designed to demonstrate the knowledge and skills necessary to progress toward college level and career work. That statement right there is how I moved Lebanon, Newport, Claremont, and Kearsarge to get teachers to understand a kid doesn't have to sit in your classroom to get the credit. You take that out, Fred, all the hard work you did is gone.
Russ, can I ask you, do you prefer mastery or proficiency?
I don't think I have a preference on either. I think they all have the same connotation to some degree. I think to help you for a minute, Fred, and I think I appreciate people's tone in the room and standing up and defending public education. The system that we are currently living in public education is flawed. And and quite honestly, it's flawed by our Commissioner of Public Education. And all the things that you folks have said have been said, and I've heard them for the last 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. And this has nothing to do with Fred. Unfortunately, Fred's a spokesperson, and Fred gets a lot of arrows thrown at him. So I get it, he's here, we're throwing arrows at him. He doesn't always deserve all the arrows. He's done some amazing things in this state to move education forward. He's doing his best to move education forward. He's worked closely with us and other affiliates to get this right. I don't think we're gonna be able to get it right, because in the end, the power, we don't have the ability to make it right. The power doesn't lie with us. Somebody asked, how do we make a difference? Linda Ten is in the back of the room. Show to the State Board of Education meetings. Reach out to the governor. Reach out to the commissioner. Reach out to the State Board of Education and tell them you're unhappy, you're displeased, and we don't want to put our legislators back in an office that don't believe in and support public education any longer. We can't blame the spokesperson because it's not his fault. I feel bad. He's doing a hell of a good job, but you are all dead on. But change the eye of focus and bring it back to the Department of Education and our legislators.
Folks, we have a couple of people who have not had a chance to ask
Sure.
questions. So.
Yeah. My name's Chris. I'm not an educator or anything. I'm just a parent. My kids aren't in school yet, but I'm from Croydon, and I don't know if you know what happened there last spring. But you talked about the angst, and that's what I'm trying to get parents more involved with this process. I mean, not that they can really have that much of a voice with the ins and outs of the language, but the image of what this is presenting of what public education is going to be. Because my concern is that what happened in Croydon was you were going to have kindergartners going to a Prendapod as the default public education through K through 4. And that, obviously scared so many people in the town. And the sad part is, like many other people have said, is that the people making the final decision on this fully supported that. And we know this. Commissioner Edelblue personally recommended the Prendapods. So I don't know if it's a question, but the concern is that this is, a lot of us see this as a Trojan horse, that in a few years this will open the door that your school becomes a Prendapod, a Chi-Pod, and all these other things that they're pushing. And kind of losing my train of thought, and that's what I mean. I mean, we saw what scared a lot of people in our town who weren't, didn't have children, didn't have students. It wasn't that necessarily what was going to happen to the kids in some ways, but some of them it was more, hey, our town's going to be liable, because as the adequacy things were written at that point, it was there were some legal opinions that this isn't going to meet the standard, and the town is going to get sued, or some parent's going to sue because they're not meeting it through these Prendapods and these other alternative things. And then if we strip this language away, we make these changes, then that legal argument, that concern of like, does this actually meet it, gets eroded a lot. And then also, I've become very aware over the course that, like we talked about Learn Everywhere, the ELOs, we have the Prenda thing and the Chi-Pod are already getting funded for people that want to do them. We have the EFA voucher program. We have all these other things. And so my concern is that this is, funneling the public schools into the same thing, when it's like, I mean, maybe not all parents can get into those things, but there's alternatives for different kinds of learning, and that's great. But, is this going to turn every school into XYZ?
Thank you. I'm your friend from the Winnisquam School District, and I should mention, in addition to what I said about our district, our kids are not academically successful. They really struggle. The community itself is not a highly supportive educational community. And partly one of the challenges we have is that our legislators are not in favor of public education in any way. They don't want to engage in conversations with us about the school needs. And I have to tell you, looking at these proposed standards, I don't think we'd ever pass a building project again in any of our districts, because the standards are so incredibly vague. I guess what I want to say, I taught political science at the college level way back. And what I want to say to you is everybody has a voice, and everybody needs to be talking to the Linda Tanners and other legislators around to make them understand the concerns about this stuff. People can affect change by voting. People can affect change by getting people to run for office. And I just urge all of us to take that away from this as well. And Fred, for years, you were an active person moving this conversation forward. This is not about you at all. It's about the standards that you have not had all that much input into what they read. The standards are pretty shocking.
You know what I would say? I would say that the part that has occupied much of the conversation here tonight doesn't have a ton to do with the stuff that our team did. And and I'm encouraged by that. I do get the other stuff. I have made it clear when I was chairman of the State Board of Education, I told everybody, yes, we oversee the rules for homeschooling, for private schools, but I'm on team public school. And and I've always made that clear. And so my hope is that what we do helps to create the best possible document we can, so that we can move our system forward and be the leader as many states around the country perceive New Hampshire. You go around to other the conferences around the country, and I'm sure, like you and Russ have been to conferences where folks talk to you about New Hampshire. They've heard about stuff that New Hampshire has done. And so I want to, help be a part of keeping us at that forefront. Mike?
I just wanted to be cognizant of the time too. I don't know what time you wanted to keep.
Because the Celtics are on tonight.
They are. But I will say that I did have some conversations with a few folks who couldn't be here tonight, and I have shared, having had the opportunity to sit with you tonight and have them be able to bake bread with you, if you will. I think the most important takeaway that I heard you say tonight is that you want to work with the field.
Absolutely.
I think you want to do the right thing, and I think you want to represent public education in a positive light. I think you have heard from us clearly throughout the field, in Kearsarge in particular, and from others as well tonight, that words matter. Words matter.
Absolutely.
And arbitrarily taking some words out because people who may not have had a clear vision of what their word removal was actually doing has fundamentally gutted something that has to be the most important aspect of what we do. You've put into play right now a draft that unfortunately really needs some people in the field to look at deeply, to choose language, important language, that's going to make a fundamental difference to carry education forward.
And thank you so much, Mike.
And it takes courage.
Well, I will tell you that our team, our team is a passionate bunch, and they are, and I'll bet you know most of them. And these are great people, great supporters of public education, and have been such for decades. And we have lost some arguments with the department, and we've won some arguments with the department. We will go back and look at the input that we've gotten from you, and we will take it seriously and look at what you say didn't make it into the document, and we'll do our best to have the document reflect what I think everybody wants. That notion of cutting out certified educators out of certain sections of the document, no, that was never our intention. We'll go back and we'll fight that fight. I can't promise we'll win everything. I can promise we'll try.
Fred, I think you have allies in this room, so don't hesitate to lean on us if you need that voice as well. I think the common thread tonight for all of us is we are on your side. We want to see competency-based learning happen across the state.
Me too.
And with that being said, there is language in these existing that are still strong, still hold true today.
Yep.
And if the conversation now needs to shift to how's the state actually going to support our schools to do that, then we will fight that battle with you too.
Thank you so
You know,
much.
we appreciate you. I echo what Russ said. You're taking a lot of daggers, but we know your passion and your intent is there, and so lean on us and allow us to also be
Thank you
voices.
so much, Christine, I appreciate that very much, and Val is no different than I am. Val, Val and I bleed the same blood on this thing, although he's bled more blood than I have. Which doesn't mean that I walk off the next loading dock, Val, so, but. Yeah, that's right, out this door.
Fred, I know that others may have some questions that they do want to interact with you about. Is there a way that the room could potentially?
I have business cards up here, I'll be happy to, if anybody wants one. I really do want to watch that basketball game. So, I know it's 8:30, I have an hour and a half ride, so, anyway. Can I say, thank you very much. I have appreciated the conversation and the input, and I guarantee you've made comments. It's down on that paper, and if there's notes from the district that you want to send us as well, we'd be happy to have that as part of our tools in helping to make this document what it needs to become.
And on behalf of the district, thank you, Fred. Thank you to Val. Thank you to you folks who came out this evening to express yourselves.
And thank you to Val.
Please enjoy. Cross your fingers if you're a Celtics fan.